Hi, in this video I just want to talk about the difference between property joint ventures and property loans when it comes to using other people's money. Now, quite often you'll see these terms get mixed up in terms of how they're being used, but I want to give you my distinction on them and also let you know when I think they're more appropriate to use. So first of all, most people understand what we mean when we talk about a loan. A loan generally tends to be a fixed amount of money for a fixed period of time for a fixed return. So for instance, you might be borrowing £100,000 from somebody for a period of 12 months at an interest rate of say 8%. Yeah, so that's very easy for most people to understand exactly what that means because it's no different from any other type of loan that you might have. There's distinctions around whether there's capital repayment or interest only on that loan. But for the purpose of simplicity, we just use simple interest only. So you're borrowing a fixed amount of money for a fixed period of time with a fixed return that's been agreed. On the other hand, with a joint venture, what you're doing is you're actually sharing the risk and the reward. So this is where people sometimes get a little bit confused or a little unsure in terms of what that means. But with a joint venture, you're ultimately in it together. Whereas with a loan, you've de-risked it to some extent for the person lending you the money. So let's say you have £100,000 that comes into a project. The intention is to make 20% profit and give 8% of that to your investor, and you'll keep the other, say, 12%. If you structure that as a loan, that will mean that you're actually paying the 8%, the £8,000 on that loan over a year to them. So it's 100,000 return plus the 8,000 of the profit, which is actually classed as interest. Whereas with a joint venture, if you made the same profit, the £20,000, £8,000 would go to the joint venture partner because that's the way you structured it, and the £12,000 you'd keep. So that's great either way when it goes well. But actually, what if it costs more and takes longer, which is very common when it comes to developing property and investing in property? If it is to cost more and take longer, and you borrowed the money as a loan, you're still going to have to repay the same amount of money that you've agreed within that time frame. So if it's taking longer, you're still going to have to repay it within the time frame that you've agreed. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and renegotiate or an extension from your lender. Whereas on a joint venture, if it takes longer and say costs more, what that's doing is eating into the profit. So the £20,000 we talked about in this example, that may get reduced, and what was originally £8,000 for the investor could get shrunk as well. So it's really understanding where the risk and the reward lie with those properties. So the risk is generally higher with a joint venture, but the potential profits could be higher as well. So let's say it took less time and cost less, you made some savings in the project. On a joint venture, the partner would make more money. On a loan, they'd still get the same amount of money back. Now, which one do you use in which scenario? Well, actually, there's no straightforward answer, but what I would say is when you go around raising money and asking people for money, there are some rules, FCA rules around that. And that's more relevant when we talk about joint ventures. But however, when you're raising money and you're borrowing for a specific project, it's much easier to do that. There's not as much, there's the FCA rules don't apply in the same way as they do with joint ventures when it comes to borrowing money as loans. So that's one reason why you want to use a loan. Also, I've found quite often people, when they're working with me, initially they might want to lend some money for a project just to try and experience how that works and what the experience is of working with me. So for example, how much information they have about the project, communication on the project, visiting project sites, learning about other things, getting some time from me, versus then maybe moving on to a joint venture. And I have some people that invest with me time and time again, just as a loan, because it just works for them and they're happy to do that. So think about this in the context of what it is that you're trying to achieve and which of these may be more suitable or more relevant for you. So hope you found this video useful. Please let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to joint ventures and loans, or any suggestions that you might have as well. I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.